Hello, ladies and
Magandang gabi,
gentlemen.
Awa.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for standing by. Welcome to today's webinar entitled Reality of Remote Work and Work-Life Balance. I'm Tamel Harbison, Meeting and Programs Assistant for the Society of American Military Engineers, coming to you from Alexandria, Virginia. I'll be in the background assisting with any technical issues you may be experiencing. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few tools you will be able to use throughout the webinar seminar. To the top right of your screen, we will have 4 features for you, starting with the chat. Here is where you can let us know if you are experiencing any technical difficulties and then any discussion points directed to the speaker. Click the chat button and then next type your comment and send. Let us quickly test the chat feature for all attendees on the call. Please type which room is your house has become your new office and where you are located. If you are sitting in your kitchen and live in Alexandria, Virginia, then type kitchen, Alexandria, Virginia. I'll give you a few moments for that. The next section will be the Q&A. To submit a written question at any time during the event, click the Q&A button next. Type your question and click the send button. As there are multiple panelists, we ask that you indicate in your question who on the panel you would like to respond. If you like a question you see in the box, you can upvote it. We encourage you to ask questions at any time during the presentation, and we will hold your questions until the end. We will answer as many as time allows. Following that, we have the polls tab. Yes, we have a few of those. When the polls pop up, make your selection and submit. Don't forget to toggle back to the poll to view the results. And finally, we have the handout section. We have uploaded today's presentation ready for you to download at your convenience during the webinar. We would like to thank our sponsor today, the Echo 3 Foundation. You will receive 1 PDH credit for today if you are registered for virtual JETC. With that, we invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's presentation. It is with our extreme pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's discussion, Colleen Bryan from Echo 3 Foundation, coming to you from Anchorage, Alaska. Colleen, you now have the digital floor, so take it away.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. I really appreciate it. A quick thank you to SAME. Again, Echo 3 Foundation, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and really our whole goal is to empower, educate, and employ military spouses, veterans, and transitioning soldiers. When we first decided to partner with SAME for this conference track, it was really geared toward that very specific population. Because remote work is really crucial to being able to have this portable career that you can take with you due to PCSing and just the volatility, if you will, of trying to have a career and then also being connected to the military as a spouse. So when all these other people were finding themselves working from home due to COVID-19, it was really just a wonderful opportunity for us to extend our reach to not just military spouses, veterans, and transitioning soldiers, but to really the greater audience, because so many people are affected right now. So first off, just thank you everyone for participating in this event today, and thank you to SAME for allowing us to share this message. So it is my pleasure to go ahead and introduce the very first poll of our session today. So before COVID-19, did you normally work from home? I'd like to give everyone about 15 seconds to go ahead and answer the poll. And then after we close it up, I will go over and read the results for it. I'm really curious to see what the results are going to be for our first poll of the day. So far, we're looking at about 27% said yes, they were normally working from home, and about 73 so far. So by and large, the majority was not working from home before our world got turned upside down just a couple of months ago. So with that, I would like to ask a follow-up question. Poll number 2. Since COVID-19, have you started working from home? The reason we're asking this is because we would like to use this information to help gear the rest of our presentation going forward. We have a really wonderful speaker that I'm going to be introducing shortly, and I'm sure this information will be very valuable when I hand the reins over to Lindsay. So we have poll number 2. Since COVID-19, have you started working from home? We have a resounding yes. 74% said yes, about 9% said no, and 16% of you said it doesn't apply because you normally work from home anyways. And with that, I will hand things over to Lindsay Teplesky. Lindsay, take it away.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are around the world. I'm Lindsay Teplesky coming at you from Arlington, Virginia. As you can see from my very informative bio slide here, I am a former Army social worker and current Army spouse, mom to 3 redheads. I actually have an entire family of redheads, husband, cousins, brothers, parents, like we have enough for a TLC reality show. And I did once work in an underwear factory. I promise that is not what I'm here to talk to you about today, though I do have some really good stories about tighty-whities, but I will save those for another presentation. If you're wondering why I am qualified to talk to you about remote work, I may not be qualified, but I have been working remotely for 4 years with Hiring Our Heroes, which is a nonprofit arm of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Prior to that, I did work in a traditional office setting. Obviously, when I was in the Army, I was a social worker. I worked, in an office or in the field or deployed. When I left the military, I did GS work for about 5 years with the Department of Defense and the VA, and of course, was in an office. And then about 4 years ago, we were PCSing from beautiful Fort Leavenworth. I saw a couple folks are joining us from Kansas, so hello. And we were headed to Fort Carson, and I'd been volunteering with Hiring Our Heroes on some of their military spouse programs. And they said, hey, we have an opening unexpectedly at Fort Carson. Would you apply? And so I applied and I got the job. It was the first time I'd ever worked in a nonprofit, first time I had ever worked remotely, and took a big pay cut. Wasn't sure if it was the right decision. And then I remember about 2 days into the job, I called up my boss and I said, hey, my son has a doctor's appointment this morning. I'm going to start at like 10, but I'll work an extra hour. And she said, why are you telling me this? And I said, because you're my boss. I have to tell you like where I am at all times. And she said, no, like just get your job done. And I was floored, right? Because I'd always been working for the government where you typically don't have that level of independence. And I certainly had never worked from home with a boss who was in Las Vegas while I was in Colorado. So this was a crazy new world for me. But I absolutely loved it for that very reason, that I was, able to set my own schedule and have that flexibility to just get the job done. And as anyone knows who's attending as a military spouse, typically our service member spouse does not have that flexibility and reliability, quite honestly, to be able to take care of things, whether it's taking kids to doctor's appointments or, meeting repairmen at the house, that always falls on me. And so I really found this type of work to just fit our lifestyle so well. And with that, I'm actually going to bring us to the next slide, because I really want to make this disclaimer that no 2 remote work experiences are the same, and that we fully acknowledge the privilege that comes with having the opportunity to work from home. The reality is work from home is not available to all Americans, right? It's typically been a white collar office worker kind of opportunity. Our service workers, our healthcare workers, grocery store workers, emergency responders, like, they don't have the opportunity to work from home. And so as much as we sometimes gripe about it, or we're going to talk about the good and the bad and the ugly, I do want to appreciate and acknowledge that with 30 million Americans who've lost a job, we're all very fortunate to have the opportunity to work from home, and we don't underestimate how fortunate we are to have that. And we know that, with this audience in particular, there are opportunities to work from home, as many of you are finding out right now for the first time. And so we hope that this really gives you some perspective about what it looks like if you plan to pursue or to continue working from home on a long-term basis. All right, so a little bit about the history of working from home. Any historical fiction fans out there? Anybody watch Outlander, Downton Abbey, Call the Midwife, right? This is my secret passion, is historical fiction. People have been working from home forever, since the dawn of mankind, right? Seamstresses, blacksmiths, healers, doctors, people always had a little shop set up in their home. People didn't really move into offices until the Industrial Revolution, when we had the telegraph and the telephone and modern technology that allowed automation and allowed people to go into one central workplace. So really, work from home is kind of the standard. And it was only since the Industrial Revolution that we started seeing people go into offices. Then, fast forward to the 80s and the 90s, personal computers are now becoming a thing, and you have one in your home, you have a laptop. Nowadays, you have a tablet, you have a phone that is actually a computer, right? So if my computer failed right now, I could dial in from my phone and continue a presentation, right? This is not the kind of technology we ever had, 2 decades ago. So in the last 12 years, we've seen 159% growth in remote work. And you can only imagine for the last 2 months what that's looked like. I mean, the audience here today is evidence. Most of you, I'm sorry, were not working from home prior to coronavirus. And now the majority are working from home. So it's really been an interesting pendulum swing back to remote work just in the last decade or so. So if you are thinking about maintaining this work from home opportunity, you can turn a traditional role into a remote role if you decide you want to do that. And I try to look for silver linings in things. And I think with the coronavirus, one of the silver linings is that employers who previously thought that their employers could not, or their employees could not be trusted to work from home, are now realizing that they can be trusted, right? So if you're in that situation where your employer is thinking about having everybody return to an office and you would like to consider working from home, there's a few things you have to think about. Obviously, are you a performer? Are you doing well? Are you getting the job done? Because if you're not, they may be a little less inclined to entertain the idea, and be ready for them to ask why, right? They'll probably say, well, why do you want to work from home? So have a case ready, have a plan to show them how you're going to continue to be productive. And you really have to put yourself in your boss's shoes and kind of predict what they might ask or what pain points they have that might be an issue if you do stay working remotely. But this has been a really neat opportunity because previously, if people wanted to pitch a work from home arrangement with their supervisor, the supervisor was really going out on a limb to approve that. Now you have the ability, if you're working from home right now, to demonstrate to them how productive you can be at home and that this is a smart move for them and it's a cost savings. And we'll get into that in the third slide. But I just wanted to point out that if you are enjoying this new arrangement, think about asking for it to be a more permanent arrangement. And you've probably seen the news that Twitter, as well as some other large companies, have said that their employees can remain at home forever for the indefinite future. They're not requiring people to return to the office. So definitely a big shift. Also, just a fun fact, not really a fun fact, but for anybody who has not worked from home before, pre-coronavirus, and if you have children, people will ask you why you pay for childcare. They don't seem to always understand that working from home doesn't mean that it's just like a, walk in the park, like, I do 5 minutes of work and then I watch my kids for 55 minutes. No, if you are working from home, your employer is expecting that you have childcare in a normal, non-global pandemic environment, right? So just be prepared that folks still have a misunderstanding about what remote work looks like, and that when you work from home, you really are working. You're not able to take care of children and do your job at the same time. Again, silver lining here is a lot of bosses, employers have realized, oh yeah, now I see how it's challenging sometimes to work from home, and I see why childcare benefits are important in our workplace, and why we should have a flexible spending account for childcare, because they're getting a reality check, right, of what it's like to work from home with your entire family there. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Final thoughts here on if remote work is right for you before I pass it on to our next panelist. There's some obvious pros, right? You get to save time and save money on hair, makeup, clothes, commute. Although now with all these Zoom calls, I'm finding myself having to do hair and makeup, which I'm not really excited about. But before coronavirus, I don't know if you guys noticed this, I feel like we did not do half as many Zoom calls. And then as soon as coronavirus hit and everybody is working from home, now it's like Zoom calls all day long. So I'm not sure what that phenomenon is, but I've had to pull out some of my work clothes again. Flexibility is obviously the big one in terms of making your own schedule and having the ability to take care of other obligations in the middle of the day and then to work later at night, as long as you're getting the job done and not having to worry about, like I did at the VA, accounting for every 15 minutes of time via my virtual time card that I had to do. Military spouse friendly, obviously, don't need to say much more about that. Also, people love working from home because you can really get some deep work done. So if you're an introvert naturally, or if you're somebody who likes to kind of get in the zone and really, get to work, you don't have to worry about coworkers distracting you. Now, again, this is all very different pre versus during pandemic situation. I'm getting a lot less deep work done with my 3 children in the house. So disclaimer, right? But in a normal setting, you can really get some good work done. Also, people are realizing the location independence element is fantastic, right? If you have aging parents and you need to go there for a couple weeks, you can take your laptop, you can work from their house, right? It just gives you a little bit of freedom that, you didn't previously get to experience if you were having to take normal PTO to, maybe go and take care of parents or other family members. So some really great pros. There's also a lot of pros for the employers in terms of cost savings, less sickness, because your employees, obviously in a pandemic, we've seen this play out. When they're not around other people, they don't get sick so much. So they pay out less sick days. There's all kinds of pollution, right? Global warming, the environment. There's been all kinds of advantages there with people working from home. So it's not just for the individual worker. There are some greater advantages. But some of the cons, if you're a true extrovert and you love to have that dynamic and interaction with people. Also, if you're in a creative profession and you need to be around other creative people, that can be really difficult working from home. Now, obviously, you have co-work spaces, right? So it's kind of funny how there's spaces for people who work from home to go and get together, right? It seems like a bit ironic, but you can see how it would normally be lonely when your family is not in the house with you while you're working from home. You have to be a little more proactive with professional development because you don't have all your supervisors and mentors around all the time to check in and see how you're doing and see what areas you need to develop. You have to be a little bit more, take a little more initiative there. There's also a FOMO aspect, right? You feel like if I'm not in the office, I may be missing out. If certain executives or C-suite people are in an office and I'm not getting that face time with my boss. There's some obvious personality characteristics that you need to have, being self-directed and self-disciplined. And last but not least, it's very employer dependent. So some employers do an excellent job of supporting their remote workers, others maybe not so much. So you also have to really think about your employer and if it's a good fit in terms of their company culture. So having said that, I don't want to go over my time. I want to hand it back over to Colleen so she can do our third poll and hand it over to our next speaker.
Great. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Going into the next poll, we have, do you feel like you work too much since you've been working from home? Again, about 15 seconds to respond. Your options are absolutely, I just can't turn it off. Sometimes I lose track of the time and I just keep going. Nope, I work the same and keep my schedule. And not at all. I have a hard time focusing and getting enough done is what that last word should say. So we'll give you about 5 more seconds to go ahead and respond, and then we will review our poll. I thought you had a really great point, Lindsay, actually, in your presentation, that kind of portability of your job. It's not just working from home, it's working remotely. So if you are having to be on the road for whatever reason, you can pop in from a hotel, you can pop in from wherever, and you still have that kind of productivity. So that was a great point. All right, and our poll is now closed. Our results are the majority is B. Sometimes I lose track of the time and I just keep going at 51%, followed at 24% of nope, I just keep working my same schedule. A little bit less than that, around 20%, absolutely, I can't turn it off, so people are losing track of time. And then we have about 7% who are having some issues trying to focus while working from home. And with that, I would like to hand things over to Lori Revely, who has a lot of experience in working from home and balancing children and all that goes along with it. So Lori, take it away.
Thanks, Colleen. I want to thank SAME and Belle so much for handling all of this and helping us put together, and my co-panelists. This has been a lot of fun getting ready for today and this last week. So I'm really actually proud of so many people saying B, because that sounds like you guys don't even need this, work balance thing. You got it all covered. But I started working from home 2.5 years ago, and I was absolutely an A, working all the time. And I'm really, I've gotten really good at work balance and getting my life back on track with balancing family time and work. And so I'm going to talk about some of the struggles and the challenges where I started and from where I've ended up now. So when I started working from home, I just worked all the time. And so I felt like I was doing such a great job, because when you work all the time, I was just so proud of that. I would start working in the morning early and, set the alarm and get up and start at the same. I do that still. I keep a schedule and get up and start at the same time every day, but I just never thought I could take a break. I wanted to prove that I was always working and always available, and wanted my team to know I was always there for them. And my partner, who's, across the country, know that I'm always there. I'm always on. My light's always green. I'm never going to be yellow. I could be red because that means I'm in a meeting. But I was always green. If I had to go down and get coffee, I was taking my laptop with me. Just silly, But then I would go, work would be over, and I would go downstairs with my laptop and make dinner while working, continue to take calls while making dinner. As long as I had dinner with my kids, I was still a good mom. So I would turn it all off, no phones at the dinner table. And then we'd finish dinner and I'd go back to work. So I think, oh, thank you for changing the slide. I forgot. But, when people start to ask, oh, well, yeah, what do you do for fun? And your answer is, well, I travel for work all the time. That's fun. That's not really the best answer. And then you have to start giving yourself breaks and reevaluating a little bit sometimes. So that, let's see, I was getting ahead of myself, but yeah, give yourself a break. So when you're literally trying to adjust, I saw that big 74% has started working from home just since COVID-19. While you're adjusting and learning how to do this work from home thing, give yourself a break as you're adjusting, because it is a big change. And then literally give yourself a break. Make yourself take a break. I've had to force myself into doing that, and it's been the best change. It's taken a lot of time, but that's something I'll get into in a little bit. And before I get to the next slide, I'll just say it's okay to change your surroundings as many times. I've literally changed my office space or where I sit 9 times since in the 2.5 years since I've been doing this. And I have an office in my house, but it's cold. And I don't know why it never gets warm in there, but I was wasting so much money on the space heaters and, I'd wrap myself in an electric blanket. And so I moved to a different area and I didn't really like it there and the sun beat my face. And so then I moved my desk again. And every time I move, it gets a little better, but it's okay to just keep changing. And it's kind of fun. It's like revitalizing how I feel about work. Every time I change my desk, I love it a little bit more. And kind of like when you switch your furniture around in your house, you feel like you have a new room. But you can just keep switching. It's okay to just keep changing until you feel comfortable. So I'll go to the next one. I think when I really started giving myself, figuring out the balance was when I always was, you always say, depending on your beliefs and your values, I've always lived this God first, family second, career third. And I was speaking that and saying that about my family coming first. And my daughter kind of chuckled and she said, you always works first for you, Mom, and it's okay, but work's always first. You're always working. And that just like hit me in the gut because I don't ever want my kids to feel like they come second to anything in my life. And so I started to really turn it off when I'm done with work. I'm done with work and my kids are there. I'm going to be there for them. And sometimes we always have to, you have your days where you work late and you have your weekends when you have to work. But I do, before COVID, I travel a lot for work. And so that's the time I'm away from them. When I'm home, I don't want to be away from them. So I need to be present. And I started to really reevaluate and make my time when I'm done with my workday be available for them, even if it's just being in the same room, but not working, not being, because if I had my laptop open, they felt like they couldn't talk to me or they couldn't, if I'm sitting there with a book, they'll interrupt me all day, but if I had my laptop, they were like, Mom's working, we can't talk to her. So I really started to stop working at the end of the day. And now it's hard to get me to work on the weekend. So I value my weekends, and that work-life balance has made me a better at work. Cavalry is the company I'm with, Cavalry, and it's thriving. And I think I'm happier at work. I do a better job, and just because I have those breaks. I'm trying to watch the time, so feel free to give me a little wave or something, Colleen. But something that I put into my days, not just after work and finishing work on time, but taking breaks during the day. I'm in Seattle, and sunshine's a big deal in the summer, so I make sure to take a half an hour in the middle of the day, and as soon as the sun starts coming out, I make sure that I get outside and sit. I'll put an alarm and I'll sit outside in the sun for 30 days and just close my eyes and lay in the sun and sit in the sun in a chair and not work, and put my phone on do not disturb for 30 minutes and take that mental health break in the sunshine. And then sometimes I just work outside the rest of the day. So you can do that. If you have an umbrella, it'll shade your laptop so that you can still work. It's the best. It's the best for your brain to just sit outside sometimes and work. As long as you don't have a bunch of noise around you with a meeting, you can do that. And that's helped. I schedule in dog walks now. Oh my gosh, when you can't get out of the house with this COVID thing. I haven't been outside walking my dog more since forever, but that's a break I'll schedule in. And those have been just absolutely incredible for my work-life balance. And another tip I have, I think, that's right there. Yeah. Decluttering your office space. That really helps, just because when the space around you is nice and clean. I took lean courses years ago, and that was a big thing, is decluttering your area. And if you do that just at the end of the day and have all your stuff neat and clean, and you start and then walk away and be done, that just has everything. It's such a nice feeling when you get back in the morning and you can start and you're just ready to go and you're ready to work. Because, well, I'm going to stop right there. But one more thing, when you walk away, it's so hard. We're in this, 24/7 connectivity, and walking away is hard when, you have your Apple Watch and you have your phone and all your email alerts and your team alerts and everything comes through. You walk away and you're like constantly getting pinged. We're in 24/7, like the time zones. We're getting pinged from people all over the world, or 4 different time zones in my company, that people are working, and that's fine, but you don't have to answer. You can put it off. The work's still going to be there, and you can just get to it tomorrow, because your life's important. You need to keep prioritizing. So that's what I got.
And actually, Lori, we have a question from somebody who would like to know what the name of that course that you took was as it relates to lean.
It was a lean construction.
Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a lean construction through the AGC, and it was actually a series of 6 courses. It was lean, LEAN. That was what it was called. It was lean construction series through the AGC of Washington, but I know the AGC and a lot of courses. You can just Google lean. Tons of them will come up.
Great. And just a reminder to everybody, if you do have specific questions for any of our presenters so far or throughout the rest of the session, please use the Q&A tab in the chat function. So that way, when we get to our Q&A session at the end, we can make sure that we know exactly who your question is directed toward. Thank you so much, Lori, for your presentation. I would like to go ahead and hand things over now to Carolyn Roberts over at Jacobs. Carolyn, please take it away.
Thanks, Colleen. Some fun facts about me. At one point in my life, I was a top 10 nationally ranked swimmer. For those of you who know me or have attended JETC ball with me, I love hip hop music. I will start dancing. It's involuntary and hopefully it's contagious. You will join me at some point. And my favorite class in high school was ROTC. Sorry, Army and Navy. It was Air Force ROTC. But I loved it because of the science focus, and the whole second year was meteorology, which I found fascinating. So today, I thought I'd walk you through kind of an evolution of my office home work-life balance or lack of. I don't think I'm an expert here, but I've made enough mistakes that I feel like I have something to share. I started with Jacobs back in 2004 in the traditional office environment. And my issue there was in that type of environment, going into an office every day, by the time I got 2 kids in the car, got them to daycare, got to the office, I mean, I felt like, that took half the day, right? And then as life happens during those 8 or 9 hours that you were in the office, I had to take PTO to deal with any kind of health care, appointment or, something at the home where you have to be home. And I felt like my work-life balance was out of whack because I never had any PTO. I never had vacation because I was constantly using it for things like that. Fast forward to 2006 when I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast and started working remotely full-time. I felt that need that the other ladies had talked about, right? Lori was saying you have to constantly be online and carrying her laptop here and there. I did, at that time it was mainly email. And as soon as somebody emailed me, I felt this need to reply right away, right? So regardless of whether or not it was a well thought out, productive response, I just needed them to know that, hey, I'm at work. I'm not sitting at home on the couch. I'm not, doing something with my kids. I'm working. And that was probably self-inflicted. But I also, that's when I started wearing like a headset because of my kids so that they could see, hey, mom's on a call. I need to be quiet, right? Trying to keep the kids quiet was a challenge at sometimes. Then 2010, I started traveling a lot for work, got way out of balance there. The upside from a work perspective is I have amazing work friends all over the world. I can go anywhere and I've got somebody there to have fun with. The downside of that was I was never home. And my girlfriends that, we used to get up and go running on Sunday mornings. I either wasn't home to go or I was too exhausted to actually get up and go for a run in the morning. So some of those relationships moved on. And then pre-COVID, kind of fast forwarding to now, I love the technology and the more online tools for collaboration because I don't feel that compulsive need to be so responsive because people can see what I'm doing. We've got Skype, we've got Teams, we've got SharePoint, we've got OneNote. I don't have to continuously push the information out. People can see it. And then also just the flexibility, right? So, if I do have to do something with my family or if there's something that I personally want to go do and it's during working hours, I can make up the work either by getting up earlier, working later, the weekends, whatever. Fast forward to now where COVID, what I'm struggling with is, what day is it? Like a Saturday looks like a Tuesday. So my Saturdays used to be filled with kids events and family, I didn't have time to work on the weekends. Now I'm finding myself getting up on Saturday mornings, rolling in here, and working for a while before the rest of my family gets up. And, maybe that's okay. Maybe not, because then sometimes, Wednesday will roll around and I'm exhausted because I worked all weekend. So I'm still trying to figure that piece out. And then I do have 2 kids who are in school, online school. They're not in school. So I'm having to take some time there to dedicate to them during working hours and trying to figure out that balance too, which I think is a challenge. Post-COVID, though, I'm extremely hopeful because I think it's going to open the door for a lot of opportunity for folks to work from home. For those of you who are struggling working at home for the first time, I'm sorry, but I also love it because you get it now. There can be challenges and they're easy to overcome. It's just people have never experienced it, so they don't know. Make sure that, you've got a decent desk, that you, for instance, have dual monitors. People in the office take it for granted because they have it. And when you start working from home, your company may think about it, they may not. But I think now, post-COVID, everybody's going to be thinking about those things, and I think that's a good thing. I wanted to leave you with a little tool that I use that I find very helpful for myself. So I'm going to focus on this first circle, which is my 2015, when I was traveling probably way too much. If you think of a circle, obviously well-rounded, right? And you have different spokes. So each spoke is something in my life that either I wanted to put my focus to or that took focus from, other things in my life. A perfectly well-balanced, your spoke would be touching the circle, right? So 2015, you can see I'm traveling too much. It's way outside of the circle and it's coming at the expense of some other things in my life. I encourage you to get out a sheet of paper and do this. It takes about 30 seconds. The beauty here is not only just awareness, but also looking for synergies. For instance, my work is way outside of the circle, but my health isn't quite where I want it to be. My exercise, that kind of stuff. So is there a way that I can combine the two for a win-win? I have a monthly call every month where I am predominantly listening for an hour. I'm rarely asked a question where I have to speak up, and I rarely have a question that I want to ask. So is that an opportunity for me to pop my AirPods in, put on my running shoes, and take myself to the park and do that call while I'm walking around the park? So I'm increasing my health while I'm also kind of rebalancing what work looks like for me. And then you can fast forward over to 2020. I did this one right before this panel. I think things are a little more well balanced out. The work's still out there, but now notice what happened with the kids. They're way outside of the circle just due to COVID. And my partner, my poor husband, just due to circumstances right now, both of us having to work, both of us having to school the kids, he's getting the short end of the stick. So when things go back to normal, we're looking for ways to work on that aspect of work-life balance as well. Okay, so lessons learned and helpful reminders that I found that hopefully you will too. Number one, boundaries are your friends. Okay, so that's at home and in your career. So if you know that there's certain things that you don't want to give in on, say, you don't want a 6 a.m. meeting. I'm on the West Coast. There's folks on the East Coast. They will schedule you for a 6 a.m. meeting. Make it known. That doesn't mean that you can't be flexible if you absolutely have to, but make those boundaries known so that people won't schedule you for a 6 a.m. meeting. Lots of times they just do not think about it. So unless you make it known, they're likely not even going to think about it. Have a work friend and a personal friend who are 100% truthful with you, that will call you out when you're being unbalanced, unreasonable, maybe too harsh, but they'll also tell you when you're nailing it and you're doing things great. I have that at home and at work, and I appreciate the feedback. Set an example for your family and your coworkers. So I got this one. I learned this through a conversation with Heather Wishart-Smith, who's our incoming national SAME president. And we were talking about when people are so unbalanced, that they rush, they're generally irritable, they're short with people. Who wants to work with somebody like that? And who wants to live with somebody like that? Okay. But you're also setting an example for people. When you raise the white flag and say, all right, I need a break. I mean, yes, you need it personally, but you are also letting your coworkers know that it's okay to wave a white flag, for whatever reason, and take some time off. Whatever you're doing, do it 100%. I got that from a conversation I had with Steve Demetrio, who is the CEO of Jacobs, who travels a lot. He's all over the place. And I asked him about work-life balance, and his key is whatever he's doing, that's his focus. So if he's at home, the computer goes away, he is focusing on his family. When he is at work, he knows that the home life is taken care of, and he is 100% focused at work. And I thought that was an interesting way to do it, and I've learned some things there. Consider having a personal board of directors. I got this from Admiral Hanley, Mark Hanley. You guys probably know him as well. So those are people, work, maybe your immediate family, maybe some of your extended family, but a core group of individuals that if you're either feeling unbalanced, or if you have an opportunity, or if you see something in your future that's coming, it's going to come to a head, convene your board of directors, ask them for advice, include them, let them have a vote. And it helps you, one, from an awareness standpoint, but also two, from an advocacy standpoint. If they know what you want to do, if this challenge that's coming and you want it, they can advocate for you, particularly if you're not involved in the conversation. And I took that advice from Mark, and I do have a personal board of directors. And then the last one that I'll leave you with is also from Heather, Lift as You Rise. So we all know when we're balanced and how good that feels and how own we are. And when you are riding that wave and you feel good, take note of others around you who may be experiencing the unbalanced part of their life, and see if you can lift them up as you're rising and as you go through your day. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to Colleen. I think we have another poll question.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Sure.
And we do have another poll question. It's almost like you knew that was coming. So the question for now is, how do you see the future for you and your organization working from home? Do you think it's going to increase, decrease, increase, but only in certain sectors, or there's no need for face-to-face meetings at all going forward? And again, we'll give everyone about 15 seconds to go ahead and respond to the poll, and then we will close it out and let everyone know what feedback is. I think what's really interesting about our panelists today, for those of you who are maybe just learning these faces and names for the first time, is that we have this spectrum of large businesses, Jacobs, we have nonprofits with Lindsay, we have small businesses and consulting agencies with Ashley and with Lori. So as Lindsay said in the very beginning, we have all of no two work from home experiences are going to be the same. So I'm glad we have that kind of representation in our panelists today. So thank you for that. The results of our poll are in now. So we have the majority is at C, an increase, but only in certain sectors at 49%, followed closely at 43% with just an increase. And then it's a pretty significant drop. We're looking at decrease of about 6% and no need for face-to-face meetings ever again at 2%. So I'm really delighted to go ahead and hand things over to Ashley now. We're talking about remote, and Ashley and I could not be farther geographically right now. I'm in Alaska and she is in Florida. So she has a lot better weather right now, I'm assuming, but I don't melt in the summer like she does. So you win some and you lose some. Ashley, please go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Colleen. Hi, I'm Ashley Haass. I am the founder of The Daily Brief. I have a federal consulting management firm where I help small businesses do business with the government. I'm lucky enough to work alongside Echo 3 Foundation, which is how I became involved with JETC. And I'm a GovCon advocate. I have a passion for travel, learning, and I also have an 8-year-old who gave me the gift that I'm most proud of, and that's being his mom. So if I'm not with him, you'll find me on a plane working and probably reading something interesting. I've been working remotely for about a year now. I started fully working remotely when I started my own business. What I love about remote work is, of course, the flexibility of being able to have clients in any geographical location, the ability to make my own schedule, to travel, tailor that schedule around my child, not having the overhead of an office space. Of course, there's some not so wonderful things as well. And I know some of our panelists have touched on these, but the obvious things, a little less human interaction, monotony that can occur as far as working and living in the same space, less boundaries when you're on and off the clock, distractions within the home, and so forth. So none of these things, just like Caroline said, are not easily overcome. So I just want to talk briefly about some key things that have really worked for me as I've navigated the working environment from home in order to find the so-called balance, right, of remote work life. So distractibility equals productivity. And that's my number one takeaway with working from home. How distractible you are directly determines your productivity. So your focus or your lack thereof is really what's going to make remote work successful for you. And these are the things that help me really remain truly focused and minimize my distractions. So to have the ultimate productivity environment is my number one, because even though I think a lot of people maybe don't think about it too much because they're just trying to make a space that's convenient for them in the home or wherever they can find the space. And whether it's big or small, whether you have a door, whether it's open, it doesn't matter. You just make it nice. Make it a place that's lovely to sit, that you enjoy. Have nice decor.
So to really understand productivity, we'd like to go ahead and click open one more poll. I think this might be the last one of our session. But understanding what leads to best productivity and focus for you. Is it having background noise? Does it have to be completely quiet? If you'll go ahead and participate in our poll real quickly, we'll take another 15 seconds. Let us know, is it noise canceling headphones all the way? Need to have some noise in the background, music, podcasts, just anything but pure silence, or can you really just go with the flow? And it looks like we still have results coming in, but adaptability is by far leading the way at about 55%. And then we are closed at 20% noise canceling headphones all the way, shortly behind that at 18%. Always have to have something in the background. I personally fall into that category, and anything but silence at 7%. And for those of you who need options for how to make all those things happen, Ashley has the advice for getting you there. Ashley, do we still have you? Ashley, do we have you on the line? Let's see. Is anybody else having audio issues perhaps?
I can hear you, Colleen.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I think
Maybe.
Ashley's connection dropped.
Yeah, I can jump in until Ashley gets back.
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you, Lindsay.
Okay, so depending on what your answer was to the poll, if you're somebody who needs that background or you need some silence to get your work done, it definitely pays to invest in good equipment. And hopefully that's something you can talk to your employer about, going back to whether they're supportive of work from home or not work from home. Don't be afraid to ask for them to provide you some of that equipment that you need to get the job done. If you have your own business or you work, self-employed, obviously that might be something you want to invest in. Also think about, do you have a door that closes fully? Does it have a lock on it? What kind of background noise can you have, if any? Do you have white noise? Do you have a Alexa that can play kind of like classical music? That's usually what I go to, because I find if it's music with words that I can easily get distracted. I don't know about Carolyn and her hip hop. Maybe she can, focus through it all, but I need something that's a little bit more, a little bit less wordy. And also, you don't think about this when you're at home all the time. You definitely notice it in an office environment when there's strong smells or something smells a certain way, or you have a coworker who wears really heavy perfume. But obviously you can do a lot with your home office if it means, lavender and eucalyptus and something soothing to try to make it a little bit more comfortable. But I also just like trying to create the space to be a little bit different from the rest of the house so that it feels separate, even though it's still in your house, that it still feels like your workspace. And that helps a little bit with that mental separation. So I'm going to click the next slide so we can see if Ashley's back. Nope, I did not click the next slide. Can anybody else forward it? Because I cannot forward the slide.
I am unable
Can you guys
to on this end as well.
How about Colleen, do you want to go to the Q&A and we can do a couple of questions?
I think so. Again, anybody, if you haven't already submitted your questions into the Q&A tab in the chat feature, please do so now. And if there's also a specific panelist who would like to answer that question, make sure to include them in your comment as well. Our first question is from Bob Bevins, who would like to know, will working from home or normally remotely result in a major change to businesses in ways to measure performance? I'd like to direct this toward Carolyn first and then Lindsay, just since you guys have really large companies on both ends, but nonprofit and for-profit sides. Carolyn, could you give us your crystal ball as far as measuring performance in the future?
Hey, Bob. Thanks for the question. I feel like just from my experience working from home, my productivity actually increased tremendously. I don't know if it was due to just the lack of kind of office distractions and people popping in and that kind of stuff. But my experience has been that I can get a lot more done in the time that I have. Or I could do the same amount of work in a lot less time, which gives me an opportunity to focus on other things.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Hey, Ashley. Yes.
Hi, Ashley.
Sorry about that. I don't know. I got kicked out. I guess it was a good time for a little bit. Thanks for stepping in there. So shall I continue?
Not a problem.
Off?
We've actually advanced to the Q&A portion of the presentation right now, but I do have a question I'd like to direct at you, Ashley, here shortly. But first, we'd like to go ahead and hear from Lindsay on her recommendation and advice for will working from home result in any major change to the way that businesses perform or measure performance rather in the future?
I don't see Lindsay, Colleen.
Lindsay, did we lose you?
Something's going on. Ashley could go to this slide maybe, because this is the next one. We finally got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We all
So
Let's see.
you want me to jump back on?
We have a question that's also for Ashley. It says, can Ashley talk more on the time tracking platforms?
Yes, I can. So that's my number one key to working remotely. Using a time tracking platform is essential. It's going to be essential for seeing where you're spending your time, your productivity, also, billable hours, of course, and you can put them on your phone so you can work and set them on your phone whenever, anytime you're on and off when you're traveling, anywhere you go. Especially if you're someone who struggles with losing track of time, like someone's, the whole question asked when people just get lost in their work. I really like this capability because it also helps create time efficiencies. So my personal favorite is Clockify. That's what I use in my business. I have experience with Hubstaff as well. I know Cavalry likes to use that platform as well. There's so many great time trackers out there. They'll generate reports for you weekly, monthly. They can track you by the second if you bill by the minutes. These are essential. And when you're sitting in front of your computer, you have the clock on, you're focused, and when the clock is running, you're so much more inclined to continue working on a project rather than getting sucked into some rabbit trail of a Google ad that pops up and distracts you, So that's always good to be cognizant of what you're working on, as well as, you do it on a per project basis. That's how I structure mine. And you can build in personal stuff as well. Like if you're spending too much time on emails, or if you're building your own company and you're working on your website, I track that time too. And I see how much I'm putting into my website that I'm not being paid for. And it really helps to create those efficiencies and see, okay, I need to spend more time doing this, less time doing that, and so on and so forth. But anyway, time tracking platforms are a must if you're working remotely, that's for sure. So there's plenty. If you do a quick Google search, you can find what works for you. If you want something free, if you want something paid, if you have a whole team, if you're working by yourself, so many options out there, but that's essential for sure. And I guess I will go on and talk about a couple other of my points here. My other favorite tip that has really helped with my focus during working from home or working from anywhere, and it's super simple time hack, but it's putting different alert tones on each client, what their email, their text, and their personal numbers, and their phone. Everybody has a specific ringtone or text tone, and that's for my personal contacts as well. So I know when it's my child, I know if it's my mother, if I'm working on a project and client XYZ is calling me because I hear, or their email's pinging, I don't need to pay attention to it if there's not a hard deadline because I want to finish what I'm working on. Throughout the course of the day, as Lori mentioned, we're constantly getting pinged all day. And if you look at every alert at your phone throughout the day, it's a huge time suck. It's a huge productivity killer. So I like to have different alert tones for every single client and contact in my phone. Everybody doesn't have to be different. All your personal can be one tone, right? And then all of your work, like I said, several clients, I have several different tones. I know when I hear that tone, that's so-and-so. So anyway, I like to do that in order to continue focusing on my projects that I'm working on rather than that constant distraction of the phone, because eliminating distractions, again, distractibility, your level of distractibility equals your level of productivity. So that's another tip and trick that I've learned that I implement for myself, as well as putting everything on a calendar. It seems rigid and regimented, but it works. It works, and it's going to give you your best value for your time, and your family is going to thank you for it too. And even when a client randomly says, hey, do you have 15 minutes to chat at 2:00? Yep, put it on my calendar. If it wasn't a solid meeting, it's on the calendar. Then it's straight, you track it, but also, you're specifically designating these blocks of time and it doesn't get away from you. You're not spending too much time on one thing and, then on to the next appointment. And so keeping everything in a calendar, and sometimes it works when you schedule out, you add in your exercise time, you add in your break time, structure your day, because it does become very fluid when you're at home. And I am a huge fan of having everything on the calendar. So those are some of the things that have really helped me. Another time suck is food and drink, which it's essential, right? We have to drink and eat during the day. Taking the time to be on your phone doing an Uber Eats delivery or driving to get takeout, driving to the grocery store. These are huge time sucks again. And so I like to even plan out my day, just like all my appointments are in my calendar. My meals are planned for the day. Everything's ready to go in the fridge, in the pantry, ready to grab. I always have something nearby, so you don't get like low blood sugar and you need a quick pick me up. Always a good espresso or coffee machine is a must in the house. Treat yourself. You got to get through the afternoon lull. You will get there, whether you're working from home or traveling or what have you. You need to have caffeine and sugar, in my opinion. It keeps you going through the day, and you get to treat yourself. You can say, okay, after my 4:30 p.m. call, I'm having a piece of chocolate, and it kind of re-energizes you. But have it prepared, have it ready to go, because you don't want to have these time sucks. And it all comes back to productivity. So I think with that, we probably want to lead into some more Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Thank you
so.
so
We're
much,
right.
Ashley. I think we're right at the top of the hour, so I'd like to go ahead and actually ask Belle if she'd like to go ahead and make any closing remarks, or if we have a little bit more time for Q&A, I will defer to Belle.
Due to our technical difficulties today, I do apologize to everybody. And I don't know how much further this platform will hold us all here. So with that said, I would love to conclude our 3-part series, our pre-conference virtual JTC. Congrats, ladies. It's been a wonderful experience working with you all. You're all amazing, amazing folks. And we just look forward to our virtual JTC, which is coming up next week. So if you haven't registered, at the end of this, you'll be redirected to the schedule at a glance, where you can then pick your sessions. And then if you go to the attendee webinar access portal, you'll be able to add those sessions onto your calendar. So that will keep you organized. With that said, we would love you to just take the rest of the day, enjoy, go out for a walk in the park, whatever it may be.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Okay, bye-bye.